Welcome to Oregon Voters Digest, the program that brings forward the social and political issues that are important to people living here in the Pacific Northwest. And now, your host, Bruce Broussard.
Welcome again to this segment of the Oregon Voters Digest. I'm Bruce Broussard, your host. I hope all is well with you and whatever here in the Pacific Northwest. I think it's been pretty neat, okay? But the bottom line is it's very simple. We got issues to deal with. We got some major issues. We're right in the middle of, i.e., of reaching out, if you will, to a new election year. And it's not going to be an easy one, folks. In all due respect, we are lacking the kind of, as far as I'm concerned, from what I've seen to the date, lacking the idea of people responding to running for office who have the kind of leadership that we're in need of with the many issues that we have here in the Oregon area. So, but at the same time, we're going to solve that problem here on the Oregon Voters Digest. And so what I'm going to be doing today is, in fact, I'm going to be interviewing an individual from one who definitely responds to an issue that is dear to our heart, and that is the education system here within our state. And being that a lot of my interviews have been in regards to the largest school district in the state of Oregon, there's only one person that I know of that we've had many discussions along those lines and sort of kept things on track, but we still have a major void here in the district here in Portland. And so I thought maybe it would be a good idea to, one, educate the public, two, educate those who are interested in running for office, whether it be the city council area here within the Pacific Northwest, and from well, again, like I said, the statewide office or whatever, because the governor appointed a new education czar, if you will. At one point in time, we used to have an elected czar. Yeah. But now we've got the one that was governor, and I was kind of interesting. I had no idea who that person was. I did reach out to her to see whether or not I might be able to get her on the show and whatever, but maybe we might be able to do that in the very near future aspect of it. But today what we're going to do, we're going to talk to a person who's been there for a number of years here on Portland Public Schools Board and whatever. He's taught, he's been in education in his right, but he's been an activist within that arena. So consequently, he was always in a current kind of a mindset as to what the issues were. Sometimes, as far as I'm concerned, I think it really helped the system, even though it was having some tough times. It helped. Had he not been there, I think we would have been in a worse condition than we are today. His name is Steve Buell. You'll recognize Steve, and if you want to look into the archives, you can get some of our past shows, and you'll find that some of the things that we're going to be talking about today, we've talked about, we've resolved the problems, and we've given some directions and whatever, but yet and still we're still in the same fix to a certain degree. But again, like I said, had we not been talking about it, and had he not been here, we'd been in worse problems than we are today. So with that, I'm going to here's Steve with us today, and what we're going to do is hopefully we're going to go over one from a historical standpoint, his time from a historical standpoint, and then we're going to just get right into general, and hopefully we'll be impacting and sharing with you and giving you some feel of where we are presently with the whole idea with the issue with the union situation that we have here today, and where the Portland Public School is, where education is here within our state. Okay, with that, Steve, how you doing?
Doing good.
Gee whiz, I see you got these interesting colors today too, by the way.
Yeah, it's supposed to look good in green, so we'll see. Yeah, somebody told me that once.
Yeah. Okay, good. So everything well, Phil?
Beg your pardon?
Everything's well with you?
I'm doing fine.
Good.
Moving along.
Okay, good.
Been a while since I've been on your show, but it's nice to be back.
But your mindset and your thoughts, if you will, is from the standpoint of the district.
I pay attention still to all the educational stuff every day. Read educational articles and national talk to people.
Yes, good.
So,
well, the strike is big. I'm sure that's huge. And I tell you, I'm really having some issues with that. But I know we're going to probably get into some of that discussion aspect of it. But I'll make one point, and that is that I don't know where's the school board. I mean, where's the school board? I mean, I've seen a very active union, however, but at the same time, I'm looking at the school itself, Portland Public Schools, and I'm saying, where's the superintendent? And I just saw that he's on board now again. But early on, I think we could have resolved some of those issues, and we didn't necessarily have to go into this strike at this point in time, as far as I'm concerned.
They need to figure out.
Yes.
what the specific amount of money is.
Mm-hmm.
And the problem that I think they're having in the strike is you have to agree with how much money you actually have to spend on the things that the teachers want to spend the money on.
Mm-hmm.
And they haven't done that.
Mm-hmm.
And there's reasons for that, but I'll be glad to talk to that
Yeah,
later.
we'll get on that deal. So let's go on. Let's bring the public. We almost at the same time too. We sort of have a new composition, if you will, of residents and vocals and voters too within our area because of the nature of the country, for that matter. People are moving from back east and moving here, this, that, and the other, and a lot of the participants that were very active back in those early days are not here anymore in many ways. Okay, so in all the so we had no way of putting the school board, which is a very interesting one, because I remember I'll throw that out there from a historical standpoint, how you were on the school board and some of the other folks that were there, and how we were really engaging in this, that, and the other. And then you basically retired from Portland Public Schools, and then you went to Washington. You went to Washington for a bit.
To work.
Yeah, went there to work. And then all of a sudden you came back and then ran for office, and you won.
30 years later, after being in the school board and losing the election to go off.
Wow. Very interesting. So anyway, go on. Just want you to
So I think for the last 50 years, I've probably read every educational article in the Oregonian for 50 years.
Wow.
And like I say, I still try and pay attention because I still think education is a super critical issue, and it's becoming more and more difficult in this country right now for various different reasons.
So what happened? You're thinking in terms of, I'm sure you say you followed it and whatever. Let's go through what happened. Why haven't we improved?
Well, the thing about education is it's really what takes place in every classroom. And so there's certain, we kind of moved from, let's make sure what takes place in every classroom is done well, and each teacher cares about each kid. And we moved away from that to systems. We did a huge amount of change the whole testing system. We used to test to see how much the kid knew, so we could then help that kid get better. Now we test to just see what the heck, how the whole system is doing. It's a totally different approach, and it doesn't work as well, because here's what you're supposed to teach now, but it's not about teaching what you're supposed to teach to each child. In other words, even if you look at, let's take something like mathematics. Okay. If you're teaching middle school mathematics, which I taught for many years, I had a math degree and taught mathematics when I first started. Boring subject to teach, by the way. But if you are supposed to, if you're teaching fractions, you got to repeat those fractions like maybe 3 times a year back over, because kids don't grab them and grasp them right away. Well, if you look at the Common Core curriculum, which is what they often use, it doesn't repeat the fractions. You go through fractions, do you know it? Do they even go through it? Because they've changed something like mathematics. There's a lot of problems in mathematics now. And one of the main problems is they quit doing the calculations to the same degree. Used to be you understood how to do the fractions, say add fractions, and then what you did was you learned how to add them, and you worked with them in a general area. Here's where we use fractions. Here's how they work. Here are the types of things. That's how it's a combination of two things. Well, when you started getting calculators, and now everybody on the phone can do addition and whatever they need, they kind of moved away from calculations the same and went all to the other. Well, doesn't work. Sorry, because you do math in your head. You don't do it you don't just do it. If you don't understand fractions and know what they are, you can add them all you want, and the calculator doesn't do you any good because you don't even know what you're doing. It's a combination of things, and we started moving away from that. I remember when I was still teaching, about about 2001. I can remember they went to mathematics, which wasn't doing the calculation part of it as to the same degree. And I suggested, no, this is now you want to do it. And my principal said, okay, you're not teaching math then, because you don't want to do it outward. And about 3 years later, they're trying to figure out how to put those calculations back and actually be able to know how to do the fractions, not just put them out there and where we use them, but know how to do them also. And so they kind of did the same thing with reading. Reading, they forgot about the phonics to the same degree. You can teach every kid to read. Basically, every child that has the mental capability to read. Some children may have brain damage, or there's occasional kids who just don't have the mental capacity. But you have countries in Europe that had 100% literacy rates. We were 99% in the 1980s in America, and you need to teach the phonics, and then you also need to teach things like motivating the kids, how you set up your room, how do you do your groups. It's a whole gamut of things that come together in order to help a child learn how to read. We're often not doing any of those other things, and then they even moved away from phonics. And they'd gotten a big fight and started arguing about why you didn't, and instead of doing an overall.
Are you suggesting that?
I'm saying that they've moved away, and education to some degree has moved away from caring about what each individual kid actually knows. And that's a critical aspect. My first wife, who you knew, was a wonderful teacher. She taught the first grade in Portland, and she came in, and she's new, taught 4 years. She taught 4 years. Every kid in her classroom in the first grade, every kid, every year, every time in North Portland could read grade level and write a complete sentence. First grade, every kid, every time. And it was because she taught reading as a whole, not, okay, well, we'll do this type of system. It's all become systematized. So the idea is to do the system, not, she worried about each child. Could Billy read? Could Rashonda read? She worried about that. I can remember. And so she would work with Rashonda so she could read grade level.
Okay. But are you basically suggesting that there was a break in comprehension?
No,
And there was no check on the comprehension?
I'm suggesting that they quit worrying so much about each child and what each child knew and learned. And many teachers, there's wonderful, marvelous teachers out there. Great teachers. And sometimes some really great ones in Portland. I can tell you why the differences and how they come about that with some great teachers and some that aren't so good in Portland. There's reasons for that. I tried to get them to change, but they wouldn't do it. But what I'm saying is that it used to be you looked at each child in your classroom and you worked with each child. That was it. You weren't worrying about the system. You were worrying about things came from the child to you.
I'm agreeing with you.
Instead of you put a system down.
Where did that break? Where did that break come from?
I think a lot of the break came from the testing, the new testing, which I helped found a group called Oregon Save Our Schools several years ago, which said, no, this testing you're overdoing this. That's not what is important. Is what the children know. We do tests now. The big test in Oregon, it doesn't give you any information directly about what the child knows.
But go back to that point you made in regards to you made that point to them. Were you on the school board at that point in time? Or were you?
It was kind of right in the yes. In fact, Carol Smith, who was a superintendent, wrote with the top 5 superintendents in the state, and being the top in that they were in the largest school districts. They sent a letter to the governor, I believe, and said, "Hey, this isn't where we want to go."
But what happened to that?
For one thing, you have people making a lot of money on education.
Like whom? Teachers?
No, like people who
Administration?
People who are contracted.
Contractors.
Contractors.
Ah.
Yeah. Well, we sell you if every kid in the state takes the same test.
Okay.
So, and it's a test that you buy.
Right.
You're gonna make money, right? Millions.
Right.
And so it's become
Who's accepting those kinds of
everybody. That's the whole thing.
And the money.
See,
what happened to the school board? What happened to the school board? Aren't they supposed to be the checkers, if you will?
Yeah, but that's people on the school board normally don't have much of a real solid background in education. They have a tendency. I think people who run for office and think about education. I was in school.
Yeah, right.
And my kids went through school, so
Right.
I'm like an expert.
Right.
Well, no, it doesn't work exactly like that. I used to try and explain to people when they would talk about the number what was the difference
Right.
for educators or for teachers. I said, okay, look, here's what you do. You take the next time your kid has a birthday party, you invite 30 kids, not 7 or 8 or 10. You invite 30, and then you put them all in your front room, but you can't turn on the TV, and you can't entertain them, and you see how you do. That's basically what education is. 30 kids, same room, and it's not. So you get people on the school board over and over again who are, and boy, I like the people on the school board now in terms of people. They're really nice people, but
they don't know the classroom.
One of them does.
Yeah,
So they have a teacher on there now, and hopefully she'll make some stuff.
But
they
where
don't
is she?
really.
But where is she now? In this strike, this school strike, I've not seen any of the school board members basically being interviewed, if you will, by the media.
They wrote there was an article by all the school board members, an op-ed in the Oregonian.
Hey, that's
And
not
they
real
said,
world stuff.
no, but I mean, it was there, and they said, here's what they're doing. But the part of the problem is, I mean, when you want to get into a strike, I'll be glad to talk about that. If you're,
we got to talk about that, because that's a major issue.
Part of the problem is that you have to end up with both sides. And I went through what was the closest they came to striking was when I was on the school board, when I was first on there.
Okay.
And when I went on, the school board, this is if you said, okay, what do you do when you're on the school board? You have a couple things you did that were pretty good, Steve. One of them was, when I went on, the teachers were the enemy.
The teachers were the enemy.
Oh, absolutely. By the people who were on the school board. And so one of the things that I think I did change was kind of move that away so that the teachers were no longer the enemy, and people began to understand that they need to be involved. They're the ones they're the ones with the kids. They're the ones where education really happens between them and the children in their classroom. But so the people on the school board aren't fully understanding, so they're going to go with the superintendent, who's assistance guy. Now, if you went back and they just renamed the administration building after Matthew Prophet, most of those people went there. You and I used to sit in 1974. We sat in the in the audience. You and I together and watched the school board.
Exactly.
I went to every meeting for 10 years in a row or so, and the difference with Prophet was Prophet understood that it was about educating each child. See, if you look at the test scores, and a lot of people use that, and I think, okay, yeah, the test scores, yeah, they kind of tell what kids know, the test scores overall. And black children in Portland, in mathematics, the last I saw was that they were 8% of the national average, 8% in math. In reading, they were under 20%. Well, when Prophet left, and you had him on your show, and I know this from watching the one show you had, people should pull that up and watch Matthew Prophet's show.
I'll put that on.
He said it towards the end of that show, things that he felt they had done. And one of the things he said was that black children read at 56%. 56. Now they're under 20.
Wow.
And black children, and it's gentrified,
Right. It's
on
gentrified.
top of it.
Yes.
And which gives you less black children who are probably more wealthy to some degree, I would guess, to some degree, but I don't know that for sure. But the other thing in mathematics, they're now 8% last I saw. Under Prophet, he apologized because they were at 48% of the national average. Black children in Portland. And he apologized. He said, well, they're not really quite. Now, it's not the national average for black children. That was the national average period for all children. Because Native American children and black children are generally towards the bottom on Hispanic, the testing. Hispanic is too, but it's, 8%. 8% can do math. Come on, decently well at grade level. It's crazy. And the difference was that Prophet understood that it wasn't about the system; it was about each child. And it was funny because he had a guy by the name of McElroy. You remember McElroy? Don McElroy. And you could ask. This is a number 2 guy. And the superintendent today has a number 2 guy. Ask that number 2 guy today. Pick a school, Fabian School, third grade.
He had no background.
Third grade.
He would.
If you say, okay, how good are the teachers in the 3rd grade at Fabian School? And Don McElroy could tell you.
Yes.
And so could the people working in his office. They'd say, well, 2 of them are really quite good, but 1 of them isn't so good. Yeah, ask them today. It's about the system. They can tell you what system they're using, but they can tell you really. In some schools, they had a guy telling you teacher by teacher. I mean, Jiminy, it was a different thing, and we're not doing as well. But nationally, that's the whole thing. That's happened in school district after school district in the big ones.
But
the little ones are not
checks,
that way.
Who are the checks and balances? I mean, that's what the school board was all about.
Well, the checks and balances.
We go to those meetings. We need to go to those.
There's the money. There's the money.
Right.
And people started going, hey, it's going to cost you the money to do this. If they dumped all the testing in Portland, which the state won't let them do, they'd save a whole bunch of money. And guess what? Wouldn't make anything different. Because you can Portland Public Schools actually created their own test originally, and you could look and see how a kid did. How did Rashonda do? Does she know her fractions? Does she not? They can't do that. They can't do that anymore the same way. No, not the same way.
What about the reaction in regards to Tina Kotex, our governor, our new governor? She's basically sort of from the area. She's lived in this environment for quite some time.
She was my representative.
Okay, right, same here. And so this appointment, just recent appointment of the new education czar.
She was a principal out there for a while at
locally,
at Roosevelt.
Locally. Do you think she understands what we're talking about right
I don't know that. You mean the governor?
I'm talking about the governor?
No, I don't know about I would guess somebody who's principal at Roosevelt would understand to some degree what I was talking about. But
and what about
understanding,
understand?
No, she didn't understand it.
She didn't?
No, I don't think so. She didn't. Otherwise, she'd be going in a different direction.
What direction do you think she should be going?
Well, let's can all the systematizing and let's go back to, and it's not back to, but let's go back to having the focus on what it is that we're doing to support the classroom.
Basic goals.
I had a principal. I had a principal once, a wonderful man. He died about a year ago. We were still close friends. He's a marvelous principal, just great guy. And he understood that what his job was to support me in the classroom. One time he came in, he used to go around and talk to everybody that first thing in the morning. He would just shoot the bull with you, and you'd just chat. And how you doing, Steve? He'd want to know. He would, he was going to support me. Support me. One day he came in, and I was just in a kind of funny mood, and we were friends. And I said, "Hey," he said, "How you doing, Steve?" I said, "What do you mean? How am I doing? I got 22 kids, and I only got 23 textbooks in English grammar. I only had 20. I said, gee, one kid doesn't bring his book, I'm having to go crazy. I don't have a book for the kid, and I got to double them up, driving me crazy." Well, I had enough books for each kid. I had one for myself. But if I came over and I just thought, you know what he did? About 2 days later, he drove across town, 45 minutes each way, over to Beaverton. Over to East Portland from Beaverton, the other side of Beaverton. And he went over and he bought me 6 textbooks.
Brought them over to you?
And brought them into my room. Based on that. Just based on that conversation. His job was to support me. He understood that. And I was laughing because I told him, I said, I don't know what took you so long. It took you 2 days. But he didn't have time, of course, to get over. But he drove across town himself to get me those textbooks. You find me a principal who's going to do that today, very many. There are some out there. But that's how it's supporting that teacher in the classroom is the key.
But our teachers today, like you were during that particular time, do you feel?
Well, it depends. It depends. You've got outstanding teachers who are like that, yes. Yeah. I'm sure. There's a lot of them. But it's not, the push is not to be like that. What do you need as a teacher for me to help you? That's not the push. The push is, what's our system? Are you teaching within the system? And the system can be helpful. You want textbooks and stuff. But the system can also be destructive if it's wrong. It doesn't.
Isn't the school board in that system? Aren't they one of the definers in that system?
Yeah, but mostly they're not in the system so much as agreeing to go along with the system. In other words, if they're agree to go along, they're not going to see the fact that you're spending a few $1 million to get a test that's not helping anybody. Main test doesn't even come back to the end of the school year. Doesn't even come back while you have the kids that they're tested on. And that make no difference anyhow because the test doesn't give you the information. But that's not the test is not the major problem. The major problem is the reasoning behind how you're doing things. See, education, there's two parts to it if you're a teacher that are major. One is what I've mentioned. Each individual kid. What do they need? How are you helping them? What is it that you want them to learn? Well, I want them to learn fractions, sorry. I want them to learn the U.S. government. I want them to learn. I want them to learn U.S. history. I want them to learn how to write a sentence, and so if they go out and get a job where they actually have to write, they can do it. I mean, there's things that you want them to learn and to know. I want them to, and so that's part of it. What's this kid know? What do I need? What is it that's going to be helpful for them in their life to teach? But the second part is, and this is what you don't see much of, you want to engage children. The gold standard of being a teacher, in my opinion, is 100% of your children are engaged in what you want them to be engaged in, what you're teaching and so forth, 100% of the time. That's the gold standard. That's what you want to get to. You want to have 100% engaged 100% of the time. End of story. That's if your classroom is like that, you're a wonderful, marvelous teacher.
Look, do you know where I'm going with this conversation we're having right now?
You keep trying to sneak around to the school board and not being, but
it's real. I mean, it's real.
Yeah,
in fact,
yeah,
what you're sharing with you, I could see you. Well, I used to be there. I should be sitting out there in the audience aspect of it, and I could see the engagement, the interaction, whatever. There was a focus for the kids.
There used to be more of a focus
of the
for
kids.
the kids, yeah.
But you look at the present school board.
That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, right, exactly. But you look at the present school board, and I'm looking at the folks that are sitting there. Other than what's the other senior person that just left and went to the county, and she's now a county commissioner. You know what I'm talking about?
She didn't leave though; she's still there on the school board.
Yeah, but no, she's actively now. What you see in terms of responding to some of the issues in the county, you see her face. You see her face there, yes, yeah. And so, but who's at the school board now that has the same kind of a mindset that will deal with the issues?
I honestly don't believe
You don't have anybody.
that. I don't believe they've ever had hardly anybody. They've had a couple people. Paul Anthony, I thought, was a great school board member, and really, really good, because he was 100% focused on the children. And Herb Cawthorn years ago, when I was first at school board, focused on the kids. But if you go much past them, you're hard pressed to find somebody who is focused on children and really focused on children and improving their education for the kids themselves. It's not. It's
Well, we got a
the
problem.
other stuff. Well, you have 7 nice people on the school board.
Yeah, but I'm not talking about nice
No,
people.
but
talking
what
about
I'm saying is
focusing
they
on
are
these
not-
kids.
they are nice
their
people.
education. What about their education?
Well, they think they're doing it.
Think.
But
Steve,
it's,
I'm not interested in thinking.
There's a
If you're
huge-
going to run for office to basically impact these kids and talk about their careers and futures and of us and our society and whatever, you've got to have responsible people. At least 51%, if you will, the mindset should be towards the kids. The others are OJT, on the job training.
There only been one time that I thought you had a majority on the school board, 4 members, and everybody who was in that majority really was focused on children. And that was in 1981. Since then, there's never been a time, in my opinion. I never had 4 people who focused on children.
Who was
they cared about children, but there's a difference between caring about them and focusing on them. And there's a huge difference. They're just.
Why did it
don't
break?
get
I mean,
people.
who's responsible for it breaking?
Well,
was it the superintendent? Or was it the media? What about the media? You think that they spent enough time in making sure that they stayed on track? Do you think that they had an interest in kids?
Who ruined the House of Representatives, the Senate? Are those people focused on their job and what they were trying to do to make the country a better place?
Wow.
Well, no.
about
What
the
about
money.
the state legislature?
The money.
You get some people in the state legislature who are pretty good, but a lot of them are. It's not. They get corrupted when they go on.
Yeah.
Even people who who go on the school board get corrupted.
Yeah.
You know, Director Buell.
Yeah.
Director Buell. Yes, Director Buell. Yeah, well, I'm important.
Yeah.
And that becomes more than those children out there for those people.
Well, you know,
And it's hard. I sent 60 maybe emails to the superintendent. I don't think he may have answered one, but I don't think so.
the president,
And I got a phone call just recently on one I sent him. But but other than that, not phone call from him, but from his, one of his administrators. But it's the same school board members. I can send a school board member. I mean, I could send, let's say, Andrew Scott an email saying, here's some things. Now, I've sat there for 50 years. I spent 2 terms on the school board. I should have and I taught for 40 years, so I got a decent little background for that stuff. And so I sent him an email and said, here's something maybe you should consider. I'll tell you one thing that I've sent several people over the years what they should consider, which is I have a way that you could hire a lot more black teachers. Mm-hmm. And I've had it for a long time, years. And they won't do it. They won't even respond.
can they respond?
Well, sure they could. They could
How
say
can they do that?
they
They
could
still
say
have the same damn problem today.
that, right. But what I'm saying is they could. Yes, that's what I'm saying. Now, the HR person didn't respond. I said, "Here, I've got a way that you could."
That's the
increase."
human relation.
Yeah,
that's part of the
well,
staff,
the
right?
woman who's in charge. Yeah, she actually responded in a negative, nasty way.
Wow.
And I'm
Wait,
saying, okay.
what do you mean? What do you mean?
Well, it's,
Come on.
I don't want to
We here.
put her. I don't want
We
to
got a
flare
very
her.
serious
Here,
problem
I know,
right now. We got a
but I
strike
don't
going
want.
on. These
no,
teachers,
well,
I mean,
that's
the parents want to know what's
HR
going
is
on
a
with their
problem.
kids and this,
HR
that,
in Portland is
so
a problem.
what's the deal with it? What's the
Well,
problem?
I don't know why she didn't respond. You'll have to ask
She
her.
said she responded to you in a very negative way.
Yeah, she did.
How was that? I mean,
she did.
Yeah.
Well, Sent her a thing saying, here's a way that, here, I have an idea how you could improve.
Right.
And the next school board meeting, I was there, happened to be there.
Right.
And Julia Brim Edwards said, hey, we need more black teachers.
Right. Julia.
And so I turned around and looked at the HR person and went, there you go.
Right.
And I went, there you go, like that.
Uh-huh.
I got a phone call
from her?
She was on the line, I believe. There was two people. And the phone call had nothing to do with, because I thought, oh, gee, she's going to listen to this. That's good. She's going
to call you.
They were upset because I went like that.
What? Mm-hmm. But that had nothing to do with the kids.
I went like this.
No, but I'm just
saying. And they thought, maybe was I shooting at him or
you were shooting at him?
Making a shot?
Yeah, you were making a point.
I wasn't. I was making a point.
You were making a point, yeah.
But I went like that, and so that was what the conversation was about. Me going like that.
You know why? You know why she did that?
It wasn't about. You got this system that's going to increase the number of black kids.
You know why she did that? She couldn't answer you.
Well, yeah, I don't know.
Huh?
Well, it was true.
She couldn't respond to what you were saying.
True. School board was doing the same thing, and I just pointed, hey, school board's doing that, see that? And that, but the point is, you can have these things that are helpful. Now, Gary Hollins, who's the chairman of the school board, he called me back and talked to me about it.
About what?
About how to increase the number of black.
It wasn't about this part.
It was about the number of black, because I had sent him, and he called back and whereas Eddie Wang, who's new, he called back and said, yeah, I'd be interested in talking to you. I haven't done it yet, but everything works kind of slow. I'll tell you, one of the things I said.
Wait. Before we go into that, why is it? I want to get in, because I go back a ways with the school district myself too.
Well, yeah, all the way back to you and me sitting together in the 70s.
I want to ask this question: why are we always bringing up the black kids today? It's always been a problem. We haven't solved the so-called problem, and I'd like to know what was the darn problem then, and what is it now? Is it the same?
What is the problem now? Well, the problem, I think, is that as a group, they score lower on the tests.
No, but hey, that brings the money in. No, that brings the money in to solve the problem, and then what happens to the kid?
It's a good question.
Huh?
It's a good question.
So you throw more money? Are they really addressing the problem?
Well, they were.
Were they clear about the problem?
Paul Anthony and I were on the school board, and we tried to get them to address the problem of the disparity in the schools, elementary schools.
So the black kids were the only one that had the disparity?
No, a lot of kids.
So why did we always mention black?
Well, I don't know.
Isn't it about the money?
Well, I don't think so, but it might be. But for me, it's about the economic disparity. That's an economic disparity.
Yeah.
And when you get an economic disparity, you end up with a lot of black kids in the lower economic.
Always bring up the black, and then we get the money, but we get away from the issue. We're not dealing with the issue.
What's the issue?
The issue is not about black kids. As you say, is the disparity among kids in that mindset.
Yeah, it's an economic disparity.
It's an economic disparity. And black kids
nobody says, okay, we're not going to let black kids be in the reading group.
Right.
No, but the disparity says, if you're in this poor school,
right,
and you're in that poor school, you're getting a worse education, maybe.
That's right.
But the
moment they mention black, it stays right there. Why not mention white kids, Asian kids, Hispanic kids? You see where I'm coming from?
Well, sure.
We get stuck.
Sure.
And we're still stuck.
Well,
we're still stuck. Where do we go, Steve?
We have some disparities. The disparities create a racism.
Oh.
A systemic racism, because black kids, to a huge degree, are in the lower economic part of the school district, and since if you're discriminating against the lower economic parts, you end up
But you don't. But
you
don't-
end up with this kind of discrimination against
Yeah, but it's a
blacks.
few. It's a few population. As far as the population is concerned, you got fewer numbers,
God.
and the masses, if you will, are in that same disparity arena.
Are still having problems.
But the money goes to that entity, and the blacks get the blame aspect of it. I'm not trying to bring this issue up, but that's the issue. We're spending too much time, i.e., focusing on some that in most cases the population don't want to resolve. Because if you resolve it, you lose the money.
Well, I haven't seen a lot of that, but that may be underlying. Underlying
we're
thing.
just trying to, we're trying to get to the problem. solving
Paul,
the problem.
Paul, Anthony, and I thought when we were on the school board that there were disparities that were built in to the school system itself. And so we said, let's have a committee, and it was when Yusuf Awad, for this little period of time when he was superintendent, best one they ever had except for profit, for about 3 months, he said, great. And so we set up a committee, and the object of that committee was to look and see where the disparities were in the programs and so forth in the elementary schools, kindergarten.
A committee. You said
Right.
a committee.
A committee,
Made
and
up of-
Paul and I were on it.
And made up.
So-
and who put the committee together?
Actually, Yusuf Awad, but Paul and I were on the committee. We were the people in charge, and that we liked the people who were on the committee.
Let me ask you a question, point blank. Where was Ron Herndon? Do you have a lot of respect for Ron Herndon from the standpoint?
I always liked Ron Herndon.
Okay.
I've always
now,
liked him.
he focused on basically talking to kids, more specifically black kids.
Right.
Head Start and the whole 9 yard, right?
Yep.
Was he on that committee?
That wasn't the point of the committee.
No.
The point of the committee was everybody except for Paul and I were inside.
I know, but I'm just saying. But we said black. I mean, if there's
But I was dealing with the economic disparities, the school to school inside
but
the
we
system.
use the word black. We use black kids. This guy's an authority on blacks, and he's well educated.
It was not. The committee was set up to find out where the problems within the school system was.
For black kids.
No, for the disparities, the economic. It was economic.
Right, but we use the word black. I'm just saying, if you use the word black, we're trying to get away from that deal and really get down to the nitty gritty of resolving the problem, including black kids. But you can't solve it just basically using blacks, because people
No, it's economic.
Right, but my point is
the system. That's what we were trying to find in the system. This committee's job was to find, okay, where is the disparity? Okay, so if you go up into certain neighborhoods in Portland, you get a kind of different education than you get in Portland.
Yeah.
So we wanted to bring that and look at that.
But didn't you start with blacks?
We didn't. No.
Well,
No, we started with the economics.
That's where the conversation is going that we've been talking
We started with the economics. And so we set up this committee to say, within the school system, where are the economic problems? And no, we didn't bring in people from the outside to look at it.
Oh, you didn't?
No, because it wasn't the direction we were doing within the system. Now, you can go outside. You get a little bit of problem sometimes with nonprofits in Portland. I'll give you a perfect example. NAIA. NAIA is a nonprofit.
What is NAIA? NA what?
It's a
National Association of what?
No, it's the one that cared about. It was a school set up for Native American children.
Native Americans. Oh, okay.
Native American
Okay.
Youth Association now.
Right.
But so the head of that was Matt Morton, who was on the school board.
Okay. Oh, okay, Matt. Yep. Okay.
But Matt Morton's interest was NAIA.
That's right.
Not the schools.
That's right.
And so, well, he had school, but I told him one day, and Matt Morton didn't particularly care for me, which is fine. But I told him one day, I said, look, Matt, because the number one group that's behind the most in general over the last 50 years haven't been black kids. The bottom group in the testing and stuff has been Native American kids.
But there was never.
In fact, when you do somebody looks at that stuff with profit, that's what he says on there too. So I told him, I said, look, I'll tell you what, Matt, this has always been a difficult situation for Native American kids in the school system. I said, I don't know what needs to be done here, but whatever you would like to do, I'll back. and you and I together can do whatever we want. I will back you and whatever you want to do for Native American kids in the school system, because as a group, they're.
Right.
I said, whatever. I don't care. I'll back it. He blew me off. See, because what was important to him wasn't those Native American kids in school. It was his nonprofit. It's his nonprofit, NAIA. That was what.
Morgan.
And so often with the nonprofits, I've gone to people and said, "Hey, how about helping with it?" No, they're interested in what their nonprofit is doing and doing maybe great work, but a lot of nonprofits, they don't care about what we're teaching in the classroom.
Yeah, but I'm bringing that.
So
point.
what I'm back to that committee. That committee was a good committee. And it had people on it who really wanted to get at what the problems were in terms of the disparities. And we had it going, and it was going good. It got started. It was up and running.
But then it fizzled out.
Yeah, Guerrero came in and got rid of the committee.
That's the present superintendent.
Mm-hmm. And I went to Julia Brim Edwards and said, please let me stay on this committee, because this had been a big, huge issue for years in Portland. And it was a lot of the real liberal activists.
What did she say?
Were after this.
Yeah.
And she said, well, I'll see. And then they got rid of the committee. And she was the chairperson.
Right, but at the same time, I'm bringing this point out, and I'm not trying to basically focus on the whole issue of race again. But the fact of the matter, the only expert that was basically there and spending time with kids across the board, the mindset.
Right, the mindset of kids, but not he didn't know anything about what's going on in the school district.
No, the mindset of kids as it relates, because it's about the kids. It's the kid was wrong. He was Head Start, but it was Head Start for all kids, but it was a disparity definition. It wasn't just black kids. Sure, he was focusing in Northeast because it gets the attention, if you will, of folks when you say black anyway. But he had, I'm talking from the standpoint of where we've been and where my mindset is, where we are right now. We still have the problem, and I'm thinking that what if he had been sitting on that committee day one when he basically got that whole Head Start to be a national issue.
If he'd have been sitting on the committee, they'd had a lot tougher time getting rid of it.
Getting rid of it?
Getting rid of the committee. They eliminated the committee.
Yeah, right.
If he'd have been sitting on it, I didn't think of it at the time that was because I didn't think they were going to get rid of the committee. I thought they were going to go forward and actually begin to deal with what was taking place in the budget, what was taking place at each school, and so forth.
But he was the only entity.
He understood. He understood what's going on in the community, but he didn't necessarily understand what was going on in the schools.
Not just the community of black kids. Kids across the board. It was called Head Start. And in fact, today, all due respect, when it was here, it went national. Remember that?
Yeah.
And he became president of the organization. The majority of the kids now are white. Right? Am I right?
Well, yeah, I think it's basically,
Yeah.
It's basic, close,
and then now he's back here basically doing the same.
But the point is, it wasn't about... It was about what was taking place in the offices and so forth, not about what was actually taking place in the school.
I'm agreeing with you, Steve. I'm just saying,
if he'd have been sitting on it, been a tough time getting rid of it.
That's right.
Yeah.
And I think today...
Retrospect would have been probably a good idea.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And here we're sitting up now because the dollars... The one thing about those dollars, they follow the kids, right?
Well,
across the board.
No.
Oh
no! That was what we were trying to figure out in this committee was how come you're getting a worse education out at this school than you are at this school when they all should be the same.
Right.
And so what you first needed to figure out was, okay, what programs? The programs should be equal. If you're in the 5th grade and you're in school A, you should be getting identical programs with school B to start with, the basics.
Yeah.
And then, and that's an equality issue. And then you go from there to, okay, now what things do you have within your school community that should cause you to get more help?
Mm-hmm.
And that's an equity issue. And so the first thing you needed to do was figure out and make everything equal. They just did it for the year. In the last year or so, they've been dealing with the foundation money, where one school can raise $200,000, buy a couple teachers, add those to their program, and another school can't do that.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that's the foundation money from the outside, what should happen, and so forth. And that's a long discussion, but it's different.
And we're going to have another.
It's different. It's different than what I'm talking about, which is within the school system's purview. They get a certain amount of money and then they spend it. What are the disparities within that? That was what we were trying to find out, because they won't give you that stuff.
But guess what? You did reach certain goals. I'm going to tell you where my head's at. The goal that you've met to date, which we don't spend enough time trying to figure out how it got to that particular point, was SEI, the black school. Very successful, top of the line routine. So we've transitioned from Head Start Peace to SEI, and it's sitting there.
The Kairos.
It's just sitting there, right? You got my point? And yet and still, we're still talking about the issue, if you will, the issues that you brought to the table.
Are still there,
back
still there.
Right? So we're not trying to follow up on this stuff, but we got some assets.
SEI did some wonderful work within the school system at Jefferson.
But it's not recognized that way.
Well, it wasn't by me.
No,
because they did some wonderful work and they put people in there. But even SEI didn't care if the first grade was weak at such and such a school.
No, I'm agreeing with you.
Over across the.
But what if we spent more time doing that support?
I tried to get people from nonprofits to help support that kind of thing, and I couldn't get anybody to.
But then, just like Matt,
I never got anybody to.
Like I said, when
it.
Matt got to his point, and then there was an issue between he and Ron to a certain degree. I mean, but I was just looking at it from the standpoint of the kids, because Ron was in the Head Start mindset aspect of it, and Matt was kind of like the next level, so to speak. Got me? And then all of a sudden we made that change, that major change aspect of it. And I started thinking about the superintendent, and I said, well, hey, why don't we take a shot? Because then Tony Hobson jumped in SEI. He did that piece aspect of it. And I'm sitting there saying, don't we have some local folks right here could have been a better fix now, because we've got some format in terms of what our needs are. With folks who are very exposed, very experienced. Why don't we take a chance and say, as for a superintendent, let's say, okay, Ron, we're going to try Ron for a minute, or even assistant superintendent.
Well, yeah.
I
don't know.
Doing something out there.
I mean,
you see what I'm saying? Are you
putting those people in a position where they could have been there? I doubt if they were. You could have got them superintendent. But
what about assistant?
Yeah, absolutely.
What about you?
What about people who could they put people in who know the community issues and so forth. And Ron Herndon did do that.
And what about the gentleman you talked about? You and him. You were talking
Paul
about
Anthony.
Paul. What about Paul?
There's people that, but that's
we had some very bright individuals.
No
here.
avenues for that. They've never created any avenues for that.
Why, you think?
Well, I think they like to kind of keep it.
Like who?
Well, I think that if you're the superintendent, you like to keep things where you want them.
Who controls the superintendent slot?
The school board.
The school board. But Julia Brim, I mean, she was right out there, big time, right?
Yeah.
So what happens? So it has to be another entity there that's controlling that piece. Any idea? Is it Tina now? Tina Kotek?
I don't necessarily think there has to be an entity that's controlling.
Well, who does? Someone has to.
Well, the people vote
about
for
the money.
School board people, they vote for it.
Do what?
You vote. The people vote for the school board.
Okay, so
and nobody can totally control it because they vote for it. Now,
so who controls the school board?
Now, nobody totally controls the school board, but what they do, what happens is you have a group of people,
right,
who are not really very good at worrying about poor schools.
Yeah, right.
They've worried. Well,
right.
And that changed to a huge degree in the Prophet thing. When Prophet was superintendent, that was one of the reasons he made so many gains, was because he wasn't controlled by those people.
Right.
Now, when Prophet went off, Joe Reiki was really, I liked Joe Reiki. He was a nice, I liked him. He was a nice guy. And I said to him, after Prophet went off, they hired Beerworth. And I said, Joe, I was off school board then, working in the school district, I think. And I said, Joe, how come Beerworth? I'll never forget his answer. He said, he's one of us.
Ah, one of us.
That's what he said. And the school, except for about a year, when I was first on the school board has always been influenced heavily. I don't know if it's controlled, but it's influenced heavily by the people who are more well-to-do in Portland. There's no question about it, and that's why I always have been a little critical of the nonprofits in Portland not getting more involved directly to what's happening in the schools. You know, it's.
But we get into the other point that we agree with. That's we should have been. You know, we've had this. We've talked about the districtization, if you will, of the city for Portland Public Schools. Because otherwise, then you'd be basically getting more responsible individuals from respective.
Oh, you
areas.
mean voting by districts?
Voting by
Instead,
district.
yeah.
Because if you're running citywide, you don't have the money. You can't win. So who can't? They can't represent.
It's tough, but it's hard to come up with people who have been pretty good, who run for school board and haven't won.
That's right.
I mean, you're hard to find those people.
Well, I'll give you a good example. Someone called me up, the last school board member, and asked me and said, "Bruce, I want to run for the school board, and what do you think?" And all I did was gave him a name of one of the entities who was kind of like the lead person at the school district. I said, "You go to her, follow her lead, and you'll be on." He got on.
There you go.
Now, on the other hand, he didn't have the background. I understand what I'm saying, but he comes from the kind of a background that's kind of like a DI, so to speak, from this church, the ministry aspect of it. And so that's kind of sense that he has to know what his community is about, right? Got me? And he's been very vocal, but he doesn't have he doesn't have your background. Let's put it that way, you know. And then I think about just what's Carolyn? What's her name? The one who was the school board member. You mentioned her name. She's at the county now.
Yeah, Julia Brim Edwards.
Julia Brim Edwards, and you know Julia's been there for quite some time.
Oh yeah, a long time, and
she's OJ.
There's been some. She's had some difficulty. I as a person, she's a nice person.
But she's
I like her
because her dad, you know, he had background politically speaking quite a bit. You know what I'm saying?
You get I know exactly what you're saying, but
I'm coming from.
You know,
But now she's gone. Now you got my understand. That. So I'm saying this strike thing. If we
the decisions don't get made based on what they're going to do for children.
Right.
I mean, or they're made on all these other things and the community things by each community.
Look at
you think Ronnie Hernan supported me? You know what I did. You know what I did in 1981, and you know how I've spoken out. But you think Ronnie Hernan supported me in my campaign? No, he didn't. He kind of supported my opponent, who was not white.
Okay. On that particular note, my friend, you got to come back. Hopefully, that's going to be enough.
Are we out of time?
Yeah. There's enough, if you will, to kind of help these folks out and resolve this.
You want to do a quick shot on the strike?
We're going to. You want to spend some time for a minute? Can you wait for a moment?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Tell you what we'll do is that we're going to take a short break, and then I'm going to come back, and we're going to do this next segment on you, okay? Okay, folks, thanks for joining at this point in time. Join us again. We'll see you next time around. Have a good one. Bye.